Good morning, mathematicians. We're going to be starting our new unit on fractions and probability. Today we'll be working on lesson 7.1, Review of Basic Fraction Concepts. Our target for today is to review fractions as parts of a whole, or the one, fractions on number lines, and uses of fractions. If you haven't filled out your goal for the day, please make sure you do so now. Let's get started with our warm-up. I have written down the first three multiples in a sequence, and I would like you to write on your whiteboard the next three multiples in that sequence for these three sets of numbers. Now I'll say the first three numbers in the sequence, and I want you to say the next three that come after. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 8, 10, 12, 12, 15, 18, Now let's do the same thing with these next sequences of numbers. Again, I will say the first three, you can say the next three that follow. 16, 20, 24, 24, 30, 36, 9, 18, 27, and we've got one more set of numbers to go through. I will again say the first three. You can say the next three that follow. 56, 48, 40, 54, 45, 36, 56, 49, 42, Now we're going to start thinking of some ways that fractions are used outside of just in our math class. I want you to think of 3 ways that fractions are used in the world and turn and talk and share those with your partner. Go ahead. Alright, so today we will be reviewing fractions as parts of wholes, measures, and counts. Let's review some concepts about fractions before we get started. As we know, a fraction always has to be a fraction of something. For example, if we look at these watermelon, you can see this one is split into halves. They are halves of this whole piece of watermelon here. And in this part, these are thirds of this piece of watermelon. So this whole right here is considered the 1 for this fraction. Notice how as this watermelon gets split into the halves, or the thirds, the shares are equal. So all fractions must have fair shares or equal parts, just like you see here. Another thing to remember is fraction notation. Fractions can be written in this way, where we have a number, then the line, and then another number, or it can be written with a slash like this. The top number is our numerator, and the bottom number is our denominator. And this number names the number of equal parts into which the whole is divided. One last thing to remember is that when we have numbers such as 2 1/2 or 1 3/5, those are called mixed numbers because they have a whole number, and a fraction combined. Today for our classwork, we will be working on pages 185 and 186 in our math journal to review fractions. We need to divide each shape into equal parts, color a fraction of the parts, and write the name of the whole in the whole box. As you can see, for number 1 this is already done, but if we look at number 2 we need to make sure we fill in that box. So looking at number 2, it says divide the rhombus into 2 equal parts, color 0 halves of the rhombus. So I know that my whole is 1 rhombus, and now I need to divide it into 2 equal parts. So I'm just going to draw that line right down the middle. And it says to color in 0 halves, so I'm not going to color in either side of this picture. Looking at problem 6 now, we can see that there are 2 hexagons, and it says color in 1 2/3 hexagons after we divided it into thirds. Remember, we have to divide it into equal parts, so I cannot divide it like this because the parts are not equal. I can, however, use the dots to help me figure out where to draw my equal parts. So I need it into 3 equal parts. So I'm going to draw there and there, and you can see I have 3 equal parts on these hexagons. And it says to color 1 2/3, so that means 1 whole hexagon needs to be shaded in, and then 2/3 of another hexagon. Something that is helpful when writing fractions and mixed numbers is to do that as sums of fractions. This is called decomposing a fraction or a mixed number. So for example, for this problem, number 6, we can decompose 1 2/3 like this. That is the same as saying 3/3. We can see here this whole has 3/3, so I'm going to write 3/3 plus this hexagon only has 2/3 shaded in, so it's plus 2/3. So 3/3 plus 2/3 is equal to 1 2/3. The next part of our assignment is looking at fractions on number lines. The thing to keep in mind when putting in fractions on number lines is to make sure you're looking at how many equal parts there are. So if we look at number 9, from 0 to 1/4 is 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 equal parts, so we know that our denominator means our equal parts, so that is 4. So as you look at each one of the number lines, make sure that you're looking at how many equal parts are on each number line. So today, we already did our mental math, so we can check that off. You will be working on Math Journal pages 185 and 186. Also, Math Journal page 187. Finishing up your math boxes if you haven't already. And then playing Product Pile-Up, which you can find in reference book page 259. Then, if you finish all of that, for activity B, you'll move on to Blend Space Practice A. And for activity C, first you'll be working on Math Masters page 206, and then going to Blend Space Activity Practice B.